Hi all, welcome back to Smart Coaching. We are now going to deal with the second episode of Old English or Anglo-Saxon period. So we'll just see the epic poems, important points of epic poems in Old English period. So first we are going to deal with Widsith. Widsith is also known as the traveler's song or far traveler. So this they will be asking this. Please note the traveler's song or far traveler. Widsith is also known as the traveler's song or far traveler. Widsith is in the Exeter book. So what is Exeter book? Exeter book is the manuscript of Old English poetry compiled in the late 10th century. So the most important or most famous poems of Old English are collected in the Exeter book. So Widsith is in the Exeter book and it lies between the poems Vainglory and the Fortunes of Men. Vainglory and the Fortunes of Men. So this will be the another question. So there will be two questions here. What is Exeter book? And which poem lies in between Vainglory and the Fortunes of Men? Which is Widsith. So Widsith has 144 lines and Widsith is commonly called as the Anglo-Saxon tale singing. So it tells a story. That's why it is called the Anglo-Saxon tale singing. And Widsith is basically divided into three catalogues. These catalogues are also known as tulas. So Widsith is basically divided into three tulas or catalogues. Each tulas will be followed by a model. So each tulas will be explained in kind of a model. Okay. The first tula is explained through the model name of a king ruled name of a tribe. So the first tula tells about various kings of ancient and contemporary ruled various tribes. The first tula they will be dealing with the names of various kings and the names of tribe they ruled. The second tula follows the model with the name of a tribe I was and with the name of another tribe. So the second tula contains name of people the narrator visited, name of the tribes of people the narrator visited. And the second tula also included the rewards he received for his performance. Okay, so which tula contained the rewards he received for his performance? It is second tula. And the third tula follows the model hero's name I sought and hero's name and hero's name. So this model is in the third tula. In the third tula, the narrator lists the heroes of myth and legend that he visited. So it's basically like a travelogue and has three catalogues: first tula, second tula and third tula. The poem altogether, the Widsith, refers to a group of people voicing a sin. The group of people is called voicing a sin. So it is believed that Widsith referred to a group of people who are called voicing a sin. And maybe it may be the earliest mention of the word Vikings that we are familiar with. And the poem Widsith closes with a brief comment on the importance and fame of generosity of patrons. So it basically the whole poem Widsith tells about the generosity of patrons. That's why it closes with a brief comment on the generosity of patrons. Okay. Now, the speaker of the poem, which is very important. Who is the speaker of the poem Widsith? Widsith himself. So Widsith is believed to be a Germanic Scop or Germanic poet. Okay. Now we have dealt with this question. What is Exeter book? It is a manuscript of Old English poetry compiled in the late 10th century. And with the help of this Exeter book, we can now know about various epic poems and lyrics of Old Century. So Widsith lies between Vainglory and the Fortunes of Men that we have already discussed. Now we can deal on Beowulf. So Beowulf, which is a very important epic poem, and it is a heroic epic poem. It is the oldest heroic epic poem in English literature. So Beowulf is written in 7th century. So it is the Old English heroic epic. It has 3182 lines or 3182 lines. It has alliterative long lines. So it is the most important work of Anglo-Saxon literature, as we all know. So, about the story of Beowulf. So, Beowulf is the hero of Geats in Scandinavia. He actually comes to the help of Hrothgar. Hrothgar, Hrothgar. Hrothgar is the king of Danes, whose met hall in Herod is attacked by a monster known as Grendel. So, they'll be asking the name of the monster. So, the monster is Grendel. So, Grendel, the monster, has attacked the Met Hall in Herod. Okay, and Beowulf actually comes to the help of King of Danes, Hrothgar, and he cuts off the claws of Grendel and he kills him. Okay, so Beowulf slayed him, and later who came? Grendel's mother come. So Grendel's mother comes and she actually attacks the hole. Beowulf also kills her and slices through the neck and spine with sword. So how does he kill her? He killed her by slicing through the neck and spine with sword. So after killing these two, Beowulf goes back to Geatland, which he is basically from. Geatland, which is in Sweden. And he becomes the king of the Geats. His king then was Hygelik. Okay? So when he comes back, when Beowulf comes back, he becomes the king of Geats. So after 50 years, he'll be the king for 50 years. And after 50 years, Beowulf actually defeats a dragon. Beowulf's servant was Wiglaf. So he, with his servant, defeats a dragon. But in the attack, Beowulf was wounded and dead. Beowulf was then buried in Tumulus, a burial mound in Geatland. The burial mound is known as Tumulus. Okay? So thus Beowulf dies. So Beowulf is always considered as a literary masterpiece. So it has a heroic praise and it's known as the masterpiece of Old English or Anglo-Saxon literature. Now the next poem is Deor or the Lament of Deor, which is a lyric. So Deor is also found in the Exeter book in the late 10th century. It actually explains the lament of a scop. Scop means poet. It's a sadness or cry of a scop who is known as Deor. Okay, it has 42 alliterative lines. What is Deor mentions? Deor mentions various figures from Germanic mythologies and recounts his own troubles with the troubles these figures face. So, in the poem Deor, we can see numerous Germanic mythologies that linked to his own sorrows. So, each ends section with refrain, that passed away, so may this. So, this is an important question. The lyric that ends with a refrain, that passed away, so may this. It is the lament of Deor or Lament or Deor. And the Deor begins with the misfortunes of Wieland. Wieland is a mythical god, and list of characters and misfortunes follows, at last tells his story. Okay, it begins with the story of Wieland, the misfortunes of Wieland, which is a mythical god. And the other mythologies and characters follows, and then at last he gives his own story. Okay, Deor's lord has replaced wind as a reason for his sorrow. The only poem from Anglo-Saxon period which stanzas are used for artistic effect, which is very important. It is the only poem in Anglo-Saxon period which deals with stanzas that are used for artistic effect. Okay, only one of the two poems that has a refrain. So in the Exeter book, there are only two poems that has refrains. One is Deor and other poems is Wolf and It Was Here. Next is Deor has 6 strophes. Strophes means stanza of unequal length and refrain, and it concludes which trophy. Next point is Deor. Deor has, as we all already told, it has unusual structure, and the structure is more common to Old Norse poetry. So, this might be a translation because the structure is common to Old Norse poetry. So, Dior can be called as the lament or elegy or a begging poem. Next point is Dior. It is similar to the seafarer and wanderer. This is a sad poem, and in the poem there are actually 6 stories. Okay, 6 mythologies mentioned, and one is his own story. Okay, in the first story, he tells about Wieland, as we already told, it's a mythical god, and Wieland is suffering and longing in wintry exile. Wieland has a king, Nithand, and Nithand actually captured Wieland and bounded him. It is a reason for his sorrow. So Wieland overcame his sufferings. So after the first stanza, there will be a refrain that we already told here, that passed away, so made this. So Wieland actually overcame his sufferings. So the poet is saying that like him, he can also overcome his sufferings. The second is Nithan's daughter, Widohild. Widohild actually, she sorrows in her life because her brother is died. So the brother is dead and she is suffering. So who killed his brother? He was killed by the man who impregnated her. Okay, so the man is Wieland. That's the reason for her sorrow. So escape with mental wings that he forged. So Wieland actually escaped from Nithav's capture with metal wings that he forged and impregnated Bidohild. And Wieland also killed her brother. So that's the reason for her sorrow. But still, she came out of this situation. Third story is about Geet. Geet, who was in love with Methild. So Geet couldn't sleep of love. That's the reason for his suffering. And he also managed to overcome this. Fourth one is Theodoric. Theodoric is a ruler of Mering, stronghold for king of. The Theodoric is king of Ostrogoths and ruler of the Mering stronghold for 30 years. He was the ruler. So for 30 years he conquered his struggles. And the fifth story is about Ermanaric. Ermanaric had a wolfish mind, and he is the one who ruled the gods. So people wanted him to be overthrown. But still Ermanaric overcame this difficulty. And the sixth story is his story. His name is Dior, and he served as a scoff for Hierdinan ninjas. So Hierdinan ninjas is the king, he is the patron of Dior. And Dior served faithfully but replaced by a skillful bard known as Hiorinta. So Hierdinan ninjas replaced Dior for Hiorintas as a reason for Dior's sadness. So he also believes that he would overcome the struggle as these mythologies. So as these people has overcome these sufferings, he will also one day overcome his sufferings. So that's the story of Dior. So the next epic is Battle of Finnsburg or just Finnsburg. Okay, it actually explains the conflict in the Germanic heroic age. The conflict is between Frisians and with a possible Jutish continent and a Danish party. Okay. The conflict may have occurred in 450 AD. So the story is there was a young prince called Naf. Okay, Naf stayed as an invited guest of Frisian king. So Naf, who is a skinling, a half Dane. Naf is a half Dane, and he stayed as an invited guest of Frisian king, a Finn. Okay, Naf is a Dane and Frisian king is Finn. Okay, for reason unknown, a battle broke out started by Frisian side. Okay, and Naf was killed by Frisians. So that's the reason for the battle between Frisians and Danes. Naf was a Dane and Frisian king was Finn, and for reason unknown a battle broke out between them. So Naf was killed and Naf's retainer Hengist took command. So Hengist engaged in both sides for a peaceful treaty. For a peace treaty he engaged in both sides. But Hengist and Danes avenged Naf's death and slaughtered Frisians. So Hengist and Danes, they were avenged by Naf's death and slaughtered all the Frisians for the death of Naf. So that's the end of the important points of epic poems of Old English and Anglo-Saxon or Anglo-Saxon period. So you just need to study these points for NTA-NET UGC exam. So we'll deal with Venerable Bede, Cadman and other Old English poetries in the next episode. So all the best for your studies. Study hard, study smart. Thank you. Do like, share and subscribe.